From my point of view, the TPP is a giant step in the wrong direction. It is precisely at the level of trade and finance treaties that giant corporations are getting more power over our governments and over us. It is a step that means deregulation for global trade and finance. What does that mean? It means removing environmental protection and social protection. So at a time when we have crises like Fukushima, like an expanding infrastructure for gas fracking, nuclear power is being pushed on China by the US. Uranium is being mined in larger and larger quantities in Australia. At a time when this expanding infrastructure is already causing so much environmental and human damage, this treaty represents a weakening of the environmental protection. How can it be that our governments are even contemplating something like this? I think we need to wake up to the truth that the large scale of economic speculation in finance and economic expansion in the form of using more and more non-renewable energy, that this expansion is linked to a narrowing of vision. It's based on very narrow, specialized thinking, both in science and economics. So I think one of the most important things that has to happen is that we, in all those movements of people who are now trying to find healthier food for our children, trying to protect the health of both the human population, but also the animals and the plants that we care about, we all need to become more what I call economically literate. And that means understanding the economic system. So not just the trade in money and who creates money, who holds the debt, but also how that money as part of the system is being used to expand trade and deregulated finance. I think if we could spend a little bit of time to study that, we would be much clearer about what we're against and what we're for. We don't need to become angry and only demonstrate. Perhaps the most important thing right now is a wisdom, an education process, so that we can, with a greater understanding, realize why we're in this crazy position and why it could be that our governments are planning to deregulate when we have seen from the finance crisis that deregulation is precisely what led to this irresponsible, criminally irresponsible use of money, creating debt in the hands of people who could never pay it back, and creating these bubbles that are threatening the welfare of virtually every society. So TPP represents a giant step towards more nuclear power, more deregulated finance, and we need to be actively educating ourselves and others to create a strong and wise and peaceful movement, a peaceful resistance against this, while also very clearly supporting what I call localization. We can start right now to help rebuild the community fabric. We can start right now to strengthen that community fabric by creating a connection, a human connection, between production and consumption. I know that in many parts of Japan, it's now hard to eat local food, particularly if you live near Fukushima. But I advocate creating community groups that together will link up with producers in areas where the soil and the food has been tested to be safe, to be able to have the buying power, to build up the infrastructure so you can get clean, healthy food as inexpensively as possible. And we need a lot of community initiatives to do these things, because our governments are unfortunately trapped in this mentality of the mega globalizing trade that is going to make it even more difficult for us to get healthy food. So we need to set up these community initiatives, create a body of people who work together as consumers to link up with the producers. And as we know, the community fabric is vital in terms of caring for one another in a million different ways. There are now business alliances in America that are not just about food, but it's about together supporting healthier, smaller scale businesses for our clothing, for our housing, for all our basic needs. Localization is the direction that we can start supporting right now, and that we can also learn to feel a sense of hope and inspiration from, because the evidence is so clear. With local economies, you can increase secure livelihoods and jobs. You can increase secure banking by supporting smaller community banks or credit unions. You can increase your spiritual and psychological health by connecting much more to the live local culture, instead of being a victim of media and advertising that destroy, particularly in our children, destroy a sense of healthy self-esteem and creativity. So there's so much joy, as well as ecological renewal in the localization movement. So I hope very much that people in Japan will clearly educate and educate themselves and others about the TPP, about the globalizing path being destructive in terms of our social fabric, our ecological fabric and democracy, and the localizing path being one that is full of joy, renewal, a rebuilding and protection of biological diversity, as well as cultural diversity, and of the joy of feeling connected to one another and to life.